Hi everyone, it's Maureen Maher. I'm the Educational Director for the Center for Continuing Education of Osteopathy, and I wanted to take a time to make a video to talk to you a little bit about some things that we've got planned for you this coming month, but also to talk to you a little bit from the heart. And I find that you can do that a lot better with video than you can by asking you to read a newsletter. So, we're all coming out of the global pandemic period. We've been in lockdown to a certain extent. Some of my colleagues throughout the world have been back at work for, a month now. Some of us are still trying to figure out how to work with PPE. Some of us have lost our place of work. Some of us are coming out of it really having to take some time to reassess where they're going to work, how they're going to work. And you know what? I find that it's led to a shift, and this time of shift, after being in lockdown, it has the ability to cause us to think and ponder. Crises do that. But then, if we use them well, when we come out of them, we find ourselves reassessing and saying, I want to live a better life. I want to live the way I want to live, where I want to live. Maybe the work environment that you were in before didn't suit you. Maybe for whatever reason you've lost that place of work. And so now you've actually been freed to be able to make some of your own choices. And people who are coming out of this global pandemic being more conscious about making choices that are going to make them happy are actually the ones who are going to use this crisis period in order to be able to launch themselves into a better life. So where does that fit with our continuing education courses? Well, I've always said that people who study with us, people who choose to take my courses, whether they be in obstetrics, treating the pregnant patient, or pediatrics, treating newborns, or treating female pelvic conditions, generally do it because they have a love of it. At least I hope that's the kind of students that I attract. Now might be a time for you to look and say, are you happy with the patient population that you're working with? If you are, that's great. But maybe you've always wanted to work with newborns. Or maybe you've said, like I used to, that I love working with pregnant women. But you want to be able to go a little deeper in your training in order to be able to become an expert in it. And that's what I try to do with my continuing education courses, is not just offer a course on a particular subject, the knee, the hip, the ankle. It's working with a particular patient population because you have an interest or a passion for it. Those are the type of people that I try to foster. So in that vein, what I've noticed the last couple of years is people who've studied my courses, oftentimes what they were lacking was a solid foundation in cranial osteopathy. Cranial. So even though I hesitated to do it for a couple of years now, like they say, necessity is the mother of invention. During this time when everybody started turning towards the internet and we had to cancel a lot of live courses, I decided to take the level 1, the introductory course that's part of our cranial osteopathy certification program, which I've been teaching for a while now, and I decided to finally put it into an online course for 2 reasons. One is because people need it, and I couldn't be everywhere to teach it, even less so now that we were in lockdown for a few months. And people are really changing the way that they're going about consuming and learning. More and more stuff is happening online now. Secondly, I found that when people studied obstetrics or pediatrics with me, regardless of where they were in the world, if they had a training that didn't have a solid foundation in cranial osteopathy, this was often their weakest link. So they would even write to me, and I would see it in their homework assignments, how they would say, I really managed to learn the different protocols you taught me, those techniques for different trimesters or different newborn conditions work really well, but I struggled a little bit with the cranial side of it. And I realized that they're learning how to treat patient populations where cranial osteopathy is a really important and integral part of the solution, and they didn't have the solid foundation. So I said, okay, now is the time. I have to do it. I have to take this course and put it online. And this is what we've done. So we've gone one step further, and we've actually created 2 course bundles, whereby if you need a foundation in cranial osteopathy, meaning I'm talking to people who don't already have a solid foundation in their training, And I'm talking about biomechanical. I'm not talking about up-ledger, energetic, or the biodynamic approaches. I'm talking about the actual concrete biomechanical osteopathy, which is based on solid anatomy and physiology. If you don't have that training and you know that you're going to need it in order to be able to work with newborns, and anybody who tells you that you can treat newborns without any foundation in cranial osteopathy is basically a liar. It's like saying you can treat an ankle only, right? You can treat lower limb conditions, but you cannot treat successfully all of the other conditions that involve the cranial nerves, which is digestion, torticollis, many different feeding and latching conditions in newborns. Cranial osteopathy is a prerequisite. So for those of you who don't have training in cranial osteopathy, our online course now is a prerequisite for you if you want to take the pediatrics course, but we've made that into a bundle for you. We've done the same with the obstetrics course because some protocols in certain trimesters of pregnancy, you need to get into the cranial mechanism in order to be able to have specific effects on specific conditions that are taking place with the mother, specifically assessing her at the beginning, but as she's going into her delivery period, and very often the postpartum stage can have mood and energy effects on the woman, and cranial osteopathy is going to be a really important part of that. So we've created two different course bundles. One of the bundles includes the introductory course in cranial osteopathy along with the pediatrics course, and the other bundle includes the cranial osteopathy intro course along with the obstetrics bundle. So to make it easier for you, this is the way I've structured it. I've decided to put the intro to cranial course in a way whereby you can work through it at your own pace. It's a course that has 8 chapters or 8 modules, but we're going to set it up so that you can work through it as quickly as you want, because you can also concurrently enroll in, if you take the pediatrics bundle or the obstetrics bundle, you'll also be concurrently enrolled in that course. Now that course is going to be set to be released 1 chapter a week. The obstetrics course is an 8-week course, and the pediatrics course is a quite intense 10-week course. Pedagogically, this makes a lot of sense because you're going to have a chance to be learning both at the same time, but you can work your way through the cranial a little bit faster. The obstetrics or pediatrics course is going to be set on a weekly basis, so that's going to keep you on a schedule, and that's going to provide you the structure that a lot of people need when they're working from home alone. The other thing is that I've set up a payment plan that we've never done before in order to help people, because this times people want to keep their expenses down. Maybe they're in a bit of a transition phase, as I mentioned earlier, with their workplace setting, and so they want to have courses that are of high quality but also accessible. So we've set it up so that there's a 6-month payment plan. You're looking at about 150 to 165 Canadian dollars per month over a 6-month period. It's not a lot of money. You're saving about $200 on the overall bundle, and it's going to give you an opportunity to have your solid foundation in cranial in order for you to really successfully complete and go on to be able to work really well in your clinic successfully with either pregnant patients or pediatric patients. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit more about the cranial course if you want to know more about it. As I mentioned earlier, it is part of a cranial osteopathy certification program. This course is level 1. It's the introduction to the fundamentals of cranial osteopathy, level 1. So what this course is going to provide you is a complete understanding of the cranial mechanism, its biomechanics, its physiology, its anatomy. This is your foundation to be able to then learn how to assess the cranial mechanism, each bone, how the bones move together in order to be able to start learning how to correct it. Hopefully over the next couple years, I'll also have an opportunity to be able to put the subsequent courses in the certification program online, and the subsequent courses in levels 2 and 3 are actually shorter courses. They'll be a little bit less expensive, and then we'll be able to move into our advanced cranial pathology series, which are complete courses on their own, which address concussion, treating concussions, managing that condition, treating upper cervical conditions, treating ENT disorders like vestibular disorders, but that's more advanced and that's for later. If you have an interest in going deeper in your knowledge of cranial And the type of students that I get who want to come and take courses in cranial osteopathy, who are already manual therapists, oftentimes they're very seasoned practitioners. And they say to me privately, you know, I've been working very heavy-handedly for so many years, my body can't take it anymore. I want to start working with my brain, you know, and rather than my brawn, and I want to start doing more cranial work. I want to be able to sit comfortably. I want to be able to use techniques that require very advanced knowledge, very refined and gentle, precise palpation skills, but don't require as much brute force. And I like the idea of being able to help people with their migraines, with their vertigo, with their sinus conditions, fatigue, the postpartum patient, many pediatric patients. I really want to be able to integrate that aspect into my practice. So if that sounds like you, then starting with level 1 might be a good idea. If you need level 1 in order to be able to study pediatrics or obstetrics, we have bundles that we've created for you as well. So take a look in the newsletter. We explain it a little bit more in detail. And of course, if you have any questions at all, if you're wondering whether this is for you, but you're not sure, write to me, ceosteopathy@gmail.com. I'm always happy if I can set up a time to talk with you live to discuss your career desires and how we can go about choosing the course that's right for you. Or we can always do it by email if that suits you as well. Okay, so hopefully you enjoyed watching this video instead of having to read a long email. I thought this would be a fun way to do it. And this is Maureen Maher signing off from Toronto, Canada at the Centre for Continuing Education of Osteopathy.